Welcome back to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into some really interesting source material today.
Oh, yeah. What do we got?
It's pulled from a survey, one done by the Japan Property Management Association, so, back in 2024.
Ah, okay. The property management folks.
Exactly. And this survey looked into the most common consultation topics in Japan's rental housing market.
Right. So it's like a snapshot of what people are actually asking about, what's causing confusion or problems.
Precisely. It's like holding up a mirror to see what's really on the minds of landlords, managers, and crucially tenants over there.
Okay. Sounds useful.
Yeah. And last time, we actually touched on the hashtag 10 topic from this same survey.
Hey, I remember that was about lease contract mediation, wasn't it?
It was. And that one, interestingly, was mostly property managers asking the questions. Gave us a clear look at, their side of things.
Uh-huh. Streamlining the paperwork, making things smoother for them.
But today, we're moving up the list. We're hitting the hashtag 9 most consulted topic.
Okay. Number 9. What is it?
And here's the twist, the surprise from the source material. It's rent debt guarantee, or JERSE.
Rent debt guarantee. Okay.
And unlike that hashtag 10 issue, this one is primarily consulted on by tenants.
Oh. Now that is interesting. Tenants are the ones asking the questions.
Yeah, overwhelmingly, according to the source.
And that is the core puzzle, isn't it? The thing this deep dive really needs to solve. Why are the tenants the very people this system is supposedly helping get into housing? Why are they the ones with all the questions?
Exactly. It feels counterintuitive.
It really suggests there's a whole layer of complexity, maybe even conflict, sort of buried within this guarantee system.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this mystery then.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who hasn't encountered this before, what exactly is Japan's rent debt guarantee system? What does the source material tell us?
So think of it like a specialized service. It's provided by what they call guarantee companies.
Guarantee companies. Okay.
Right. And the source explains that in Japan, it's become incredibly common. Often it's actually required by landlords or the management companies when you rent a place.
Required. So not really optional for the tenant.
Often required, yes. You basically have to sign up with one of these companies. They essentially act as a financial guarantor for you, the tenant.
Okay, so they vouch for the tenant financially, but what are they actually guaranteeing? What does the system cover? Is it just rent?
Well, that's one of the surprising things. The source points out the scope is actually quite broad. It's not just about covering unpaid rent if the tenant, defaults.
Okay, what else then?
The guarantee can also cover compensation for property damage if the tenant causes damage during their lease.
Property damage too. Wow, okay. That's definitely more than just missed rent payments.
Right. And it can even extend, in some cases, to handling issues with what they call accident properties.
Accident properties, you mean like stigmatized property?
Yeah. Exactly. In those specific, often difficult situations, the guarantee company might step in to pay for things like special cleaning or necessary restoration work.
Wow. That is a much, much wider net than I would have assumed for something just called a rent debt guarantee.
It really is. And some policies, though, the source notes it does vary between companies, might even cover associated legal fees.
Legal fees too.
So you can see why landlords like it. From the landlord's perspective, the source makes it really clear. This is a huge benefit.
Yeah, I bet.
It effectively shifts significant financial risks, things like non-payment of rent or the cost of expensive damage repairs away from the landlord and onto this professional guarantee company.
Okay, risk transfer. Makes sense.
And the source even suggests this system is a major reason why rental disputes might actually be less common in Japan compared to some other places. The landlord just has this layer of financial protection.
Right. Okay, so it's a commercial risk transfer system, mainly benefiting the landlord, provided by a company. How does this compare to what our listeners might know? Say, if you're renting or dealing with property in Taiwan.
Well, the source directly addresses that. It explicitly notes that Taiwan doesn't have this kind of widespread, institutionalized rental guarantee company system like Japan has developed.
So nothing quite like it here.
Not really, no. The closest parallel you often find in Taiwan, and the source mentions this, is especially for things like commercial leases or maybe renting a whole house, is the use of personal joint guarantors.
Ah, right. The doo-doo, usually family or friends stepping in.
Exactly. Often family members, close friends, people who personally vouch for the tenant.
So the key difference then is that in Japan, it's become a commercial service you pay for, provided by a specific company. Whereas in Taiwan, it's more often a personal relationship, a personal guarantee.
Precisely. You could almost view the Japanese system as like a commercialized joint guarantor service. instead of needing, say, your uncle or your best friend to co-sign and take on that significant personal risk.
Which is a big ask.
A huge ask. Instead, you're paying a fee to a company to fulfill that guarantor role for the landlord.
Paying, okay, yeah, there's the crucial bit. This isn't a free service for the tenant, is it?
Definitely not. The source is very clear on this point. Tenants pay what's called a guarantee fee to this company.
How much are we talking? Is it like insurance?
It's often likened to an insurance premium, yeah. But the source is also careful to point out that legally in Japan, these guarantee companies and insurance companies are distinct. They're regulated differently.
Ah, okay. Good distinction.
Okay.
So tenants are paying, possibly quite a bit, for a service that helps them secure housing by reassuring the landlord.
Right.
But it's fundamentally designed to protect the landlord's financial interests, which, okay, brings us right back to that core mystery we started with.
Yeah, why the tenant questions?
Exactly. If it's facilitating tenancies, if it's reducing landlord risk, why is rent debt guarantee the #9 most consulted topic? And why is it primarily tenants doing the consulting? Why are they having so many problems or questions about this system?
This is, I think, where you see how a system designed to solve one set of problems can sometimes create, well, new ones.
Uh-huh.
The source actually draws a really helpful analogy here. Think about insurance disputes.
Okay.
Just like people sometimes have disagreements or, major issues when dealing with their insurance company after an incident.
Yeah, trying to make a claim, getting it denied.
Exactly, that kind of thing. Japanese tenants, it seems, are running into similar points of friction, sometimes significant ones, with these guarantee companies.
Okay, so what are the specific issues? What are tenants actually consulting about, according to the source? What are these pain points?
The source lists several key areas where disputes tend to pop up.
Mhm.
One is directly tied to what you just mentioned, fee issues.
Makes sense. Money is always tricky.
Totally. Tenants have questions about how that initial guarantee fee is calculated. Sometimes it's a percentage of the rent, other times a fixed sum. They also consult about the cost and the terms for renewing the guarantee, which often happens annually.
Ah, renewal costs. Another potential surprise.
And also whether they can get any kind of refund on that fee if they end their rental contract early, if they move out before the guarantee period is up.
Right. Fees can feel like a real black box sometimes. I can see that being a major source of questions.
Absolutely. Then another common area is guarantee scope disagreements.
Meaning?
This is where the tenant believes a specific situation should be covered by the guarantee, maybe a particular type of damage or something specific that happened, but the guarantee company reads the contract differently and says, nope, sorry, that's not covered.
Ah, okay. The classic contract interpretation battle,
Mm-hmm.
but with potentially high financial stakes for the tenant.
Exactly. And then there's a particularly significant one highlighted in the source, subrogation pressure. In Japanese, it's subrogation.
Subrogation. Okay, break that down.
So if the tenant does fail to pay rent, or they don't cover the costs of damage they caused, the guarantee company steps in and pays the landlord, makes the landlord whole.
Right, that's the core service.
But then, and this is the key part, the guarantee company turns around and pursues the tenant very aggressively to recover the money they just paid out to the landlord.
Ah, I see. So the company pays the landlord, then becomes essentially a debt collector chasing the tenant.
That's often how it feels to the tenant, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the source indicates that the process of this recovery, the demands the company makes, or disputes over the actual amount being claimed back, can be a major source of severe stress and conflict.
Wow. So the tenant might avoid that direct confrontation with the landlord over money,
Maybe.
only to end up facing potentially intense pressure from a specialized company whose business is partly getting that money back. That completely changes the dynamic for the tenant.
It absolutely does. And finally, kind of underlying all these issues, the source points to the complex contract terms of the guarantee agreement itself.
The fine print. Always the fine print.
You got it. Like so many financial documents, the language can be really dense, it's full of jargon, it's just hard for the average person to fully grasp all the implications.
Yeah.
And that makes it easy for tenants to miss crucial details about their own obligations, about what exactly is covered or not covered, or about the terms of that potentially aggressive subrogation process we just talked about.
It really sounds like the system, while maybe simplifying things on the landlord's end,
Yes.
has inadvertently created this whole new layer of complex financial bureaucracy and potential disputes just shifted onto the tenant's shoulders.
That's precisely what the consultation data seems to be telling us.
Yeah.
And the source does mention that because these issues are clearly quite common.
They must be if it's #9 on the list.
Right. The Japanese system has developed some support structures around it. For instance, that same association, Po Uta, actually has a specific council for these guarantee businesses, the Utakopa.
Okay, a dedicated body.
Yeah. And this council maintains things like information websites. They explain how the system works, they outline tenant rights, detail typical fee structures, and even provide dedicated channels for dispute resolution specifically related to these guarantee companies.
So it's not a hidden problem then. It's recognized enough that there are specific resources trying to address it.
Exactly. It shows this is a known area of difficulty within their rental system.
Okay, so taking all this in this whole Japanese system, the problems tenants are clearly running into, the support structures trying to help, what does it all mean for us? What are the key takeaways or lessons here for tenants, even if you're outside Japan where this exact system might not exist?
I think the source offers several really valuable, almost universally applicable lessons from this whole situation.
Well, let's hear them.
First, and maybe most fundamentally, it's absolutely crucial to understand guarantee responsibility. Full stop.
Whether it's a company or a person.
Exactly. Whether you're dealing with a commercial system like Japan's, or if you're in a place like Taiwan where you might be asked for a personal joint guarantor, you must grasp the seriousness, the weight of that commitment.
Because it's not just signing a form.
No, the source really stresses this. A joint guarantor's responsibility is incredibly heavy. Legally, it's often treated almost identically to the main tenant's debt and obligations. You're basically on the hook for everything they are.
That's a huge point. I think a lot of people sign as a favor for family or friends without truly realizing that level of personal liability.
It happens all the time. So that's number one. Second, and honestly, this can't be stressed enough, carefully review contracts, all of them.
Read the small print.
Read all the print. The Japanese experience really highlights how complex these related documents can become. Before you sign any document, the main lease agreement, yes, but also any separate guarantee contract, any related financial papers, you need to read every single word.
Don't just skim an initial where they tell you.
Please don't. And if you don't understand something, don't just guess or hope for the best. Ask questions. Keep asking until you get a clear answer you understand. Or, seriously, consider getting professional advice before you sign.
Good advice for any contract, really.
Absolutely. Third, drawing from those fee issues we saw in Japan. If or when similar services pop up elsewhere, or even with existing fees, demand fee transparency.
Know what you're paying for.
Exactly. Ask for a clear breakdown. How is this fee calculated initially? What are the terms and costs for any renewal? What happens if the contract ends early? Is there any kind of refund policy? Get clarity on all of that up front.
And try to get it in writing if you can.
Ideally, yes. Fourth point, know your existing rights. Even without a fancy guarantee company system, tenant protection laws do exist.
Like you're not powerless.
Not at all. For example, here in Taiwan, the Residential Tenancy Act lays out specific rules about security deposits, about who's responsible for different kinds of repairs, about clauses that must be included in your rental contract. Knowing these existing laws is your first line of defense.
Don't just assume the landlord holds all the cards. Understand your legal standing.
Precisely. Fifth, communicate and negotiate. Problems will inevitably pop up sometimes in a tenancy.
It happened.
When they do, whether it's with your landlord, the property manager, or maybe some future service provider like a guarantee company, the first step should always be trying open, calm communication. Attempt a rational negotiation. Often, issues can be resolved much more simply that way before escalating to formal disputes or legal action.
Try talking it out first. Seems obvious, but easily forgotten when things get tense.
It really is. And finally, number 6, keep records. Document everything.
Paper trail.
Or digital trail. Communications, emails, messages, agreements, proof of payments, receipts, bank transfers, even photos if relevant, like for damage. Having a clear, organized record is absolutely invaluable as evidence if you ever do find yourself in a disagreement or dispute.
So looking back at this Japanese system where the tenants are the ones raising flags,
Hmm.
the core lesson really seems to be about empowering yourself through knowledge and diligence.
I think so.
Understand the systems you're interacting with, understand your own responsibilities, and above all, scrutinize the contracts before you commit.
Absolutely. It perfectly illustrates how even systems designed with, arguably good intentions, like reducing landlord risk to make housing more accessible, can inadvertently create new points of friction.
Yeah.
And in that situation, the tenant's best protection, their best guarantee, really lies in their own awareness, understanding their legal standing, understanding the potential risks involved, and critically, understanding the precise details of any agreement they sign.
Makes sense.
The source uses this great little analogy for signing contracts, which I think is perfect. Stop, look, listen.
Or
Stop.
Like, listen, like that.
Stop to really think about what you're agreeing to. Look carefully at all the terms, especially the fine print. And listen to explanations, listen to your own gut feeling, make sure you truly understand before you commit your signature.
that stop, look, listen
Mm.
is a fantastic, really memorable takeaway. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into what turned out to be a surprisingly complex corner of the Japanese rental world, here's something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over.
Okay.
How might your own approach to signing agreements or maybe taking on financial responsibility for someone else change now that you've heard about the issues tenants face with this specific Japanese system? What's maybe one specific thing you'll make sure to double check, to stop, look, and listen for next time you deal with a rental agreement, a loan application, or really any situation involving a significant financial guarantee?
Because being an informed, careful participant in any contract you sign, well, that's truly your best guarantee in the end.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another topic to unpack.